Do you want to do that?
You can take it.
Thank you
Matter
so
of
much,
fact,
Ashley. Ashley turns off our
I'm like
recorder.
this. I'm like, Potter,
You're done, B. Done.
wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
So, listeners, as you can hear, the trash talking starts as early as our intros. But
'Tis the season.
I love these guys. Ladies and gents, welcome to episode 221 of the Short Box Podcast, Jacksonville, Florida's premier comic book and pop culture podcast. I'm your host, Potter Milligan. I'm joined by my right-hand man, Cesar Cordero.
Greetings.
Edmund Danzart.
Yo.
And Ashley Lanny Hoy is with us.
Hello.
I want to give a quick shout-outs real quick before we kind of get into the crux of this to First Coast News, specifically Destiny Johnson, digital journalist there. She joined us today to take pics of us for some reason and interview us about the podcast.
For some reason.
But no.
Slow news day.
Shout-outs to her YouTube channel, and she even joined us at the second part for Champion Season. So, you might have seen our title for this episode, Mythology, Alex Ross, and this follows the same format as our other Artist Spotlight. This is our fourth Artist Spotlight. So we've done Jack Kirby in the past, Mike Mignola, and even Akira Toriyama. This is our fourth installment of this series, and what we do is we go in-depth into why we chose this artist. So why do we like this artist? The artistic elements, their timeline, their big milestones, and some of their bodies of work that we recommend to you guys, the listeners. So if you're familiar with Alex Ross, this is great because there's a lot of things here that you might have already familiar with. And if you're new to Alex Ross, I think this is a great kind of all-in-one episode that might introduce you to this fantastic artist's work. Alex Ross is known as the Norman Rockwell of comics, and for good reason, and we go into detail that in the episode. But before we do start, I want to say if this is your first time tuning in, please subscribe to the show, leave a review or comment. It helps us out and helps others looking to join the podcast group as well. Just search The Short Box on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, CastBox, Spotify, etc. We're all over podcast apps. And feel free to follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just search The Short Box. So without further ado, I'd like to present episode 221, Mythology, Alex Ross.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you The Short Box, Season 5. Let's go, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a grand time. Lighten your comic world up like a landmine. First class Marvel men fine with a tan line. iTunes, The Short Box, you know my favorite line. Top shelf pop culture, comic book vultures. Supply what you need, elevating for the culture. Who better than we? Jacksonville's best voted. Season 5, round of applause, it's a golden moment. Fanboys and fangirls, here come another round of Ville to Wakanda forever. You know we hold you down, so sit back and relax and elevate your vibe. It's truly been an honor, oh yes, the pleasure's all mine. Yeah.
Ashley, do you want to click the lights on? The recording lights?
It's on, isn't it?
I wanted her to
Is there another
curtain,
snap?
behind the curtain, bro.
What?
Dude.
Magic!
We're not
Yo,
gonna
real
pick
quick.
up the
Ruining the
microphone.
magic,
Real quick, I'm going to have to ask Destiny to edit that part out where I have trouble spelling my name.
B-A-D.
Your own name?
Yo, you know everyone's going to be like, yo, there goes that Kree strikes again. Spell your name for me.
This Earth script is confusing.
These English letters.
Spell your name for me. R-O-N-I-N. Oh, shit. Yo, Ashley, I think this is the first Artist Spotlight episode that you've been able to partake in.
I like
It
that you're
is.
opening up with yo.
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 Hey.
I don't know how other salutations.
never learned to read.
Yo, shut up. Yo, straight up, y'all probably didn't know this, but one day Ashley showed up at my house and straight like Suge Knight'd me because I had to record that Mike Mignola episode without her, and she was very adamant at first, like I want to be a part of it. But then I recorded it anyways, and she showed up and.
Yeah.
Yo, baseball bat hung me from my one-story, building, my one-story apartment.
She was like, yo, I'm fucking tear your eyes out.
Actually, she was more like, yo, motherfucker, next time you will meet Hellboy. You will. Which, by the way, that might be one of the...
You go meet him in hell.
And I'm like, that's kind of redundant, Ashley. She makes me harder.
Man, I had to do homework for this one.
Oh, look.
Homework.
She's like, not for the other ones.
No,
just
I
this
couldn't.
one.
Yo, check that out.
Anyhow.
I feel like one of those, like, you know how you read, like, the headlines, like, actor X, whatever, it gets so into his method acting that he, kind of gets lost in his character. I feel that way about these artist spotlight episodes because I love researching this culture. I love finding out about the artist, background and stuff. And luckily,
You turn into a middle-aged white guy.
stop it, bald a little bit and shit like that. But a master painter at that too. But there's so much. Luckily, these two books by Alex Ross and Chip Kidd definitely helped fill a lot of that void. And man, I was really excited for this episode. I mean, I think to be honest with you, I believe. You were the one that suggested Alex Ross. I think one day I was driving, you called and was like, yo, next artist spotlight, scrap all the next ones we had up. Let's go straight Alex Ross. Man, I almost swerved. I was so happy.
I wasn't trying to kill you. Yet.
Whoa. Yo, great shirt, by the way.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
digging it a lot. Give me real quick, what you guys do for Halloween? Kind of gave me like Halloween vibes. What you guys end up doing? Anyone dress up?
I went to a costume party.
Oh, word.
My wife and I were the Green Hornet and Kato.
Which, I saw the pictures. So dope.
She was Kato, of course.
Yo, this is
'cause
what
she's cooler than I am.
This is what I love about
I thought
you.
it was kind of a racial thing.
It was.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. It was.
I didn't even think about it like that. Oh, my God.
So I told Sarah that. I was like,
Put this Kato outfit on.
She was like, why can't I be Green Hornet?
She don't
Shut
talk
up,
back.
woman.
No, she was like,
Shut up, Kato.
She goes, I'm Kato, right? And I was like, oh, absolutely. She's like, yeah, he's the cooler one anyway. Because we had just got done watching the Seth Rogen version. So we were being stupid with each other, like Scooby-Doo. And they get into the argument and they start fighting each other.
Damn,
It's
no.
funny.
That your costume.
But our costumes turned out pretty okay.
No, they were solid, dude.
All thrift store.
Nice. That was solid. Ashley, I know you didn't dress up, but
I dressed
someone
my
close to
dog
you
up.
dressed up. I do like the Photoshop. Who'd you dress him up as?
So Sandor dressed up as Chewbacca.
Nice.
Yeah, and he got photoshopped into Star Wars scene.
That was pretty awesome. Ed, you do anything for Halloween?
No, just took it easy.
Okay, word. I want to.
He's like, I just drank alone.
Drank alone. Turned off all the lights so no damn kids would ring my doorbell.
Did anyone get any trick or treaters?
We're religious. Go away.
I want to shout out Mass Appeal because I found out that he was spinning at Volstead for a Halloween themed party at Volstead. So
Yo, I saw you guys' costumes.
yo, thank you.
I didn't say I liked them. I just said I saw them.
Well, actually, you should have said Blythe's costume was cool.
That's premature.
Great.
You could have done way better. Yo, real quick. I mean, when we showed up, she took the spotlight. Like everyone was like, "Yo, Mega Man, can we get a picture in Einstein? Can you hold the camera?"
Yeah, Einstein. Out of the frame, Einstein.
And my plan to get her into the costume contest kind of backfired because I was going to. She was getting so much like, "Yo, can we get a picture? Can we get a picture?" I was like, "You have to go in this costume contest," and she was like, "No, just like let someone else like." Go up and I was
Give
like,
someone
no.
else a chance.
And I'm trying to like get the judge or the MC to like point her out. Like she was calling out names from the crowd, like, Bigfoot, come to the stage. And instead of her, she was like, Einstein, I guess, come to the stage.
All
I was like,
right, Mega Man and Moroccan Tesla. Come on up.
Tesla.
Everyone.
No, it was a good night. Halloween was real fun. It was one of the first times I dressed up as an adult to go out for Halloween. I think.
What?
Yeah, like straight up.
That's not true. You came to my house.
Oh yeah, my bad. I was
were the Green Ranger.
Yes.
Wow, awkward.
Cool. Forgot about that.
Cool. I'm
one.
just gonna go drink bleach.
No, man. I'll drink bleach with you. How about that? I'll make it up.
No. I'm going to mourn our friendship.
I'm not going to drink any bleach.
Drinking bleach keeps coming up on this podcast, like way too much.
It was like
comfort.
I was not betrayed, so I shall not be drinking.
All right. I want to jump into this episode, man, because like I said, I've been excited to do this one, and all the research has only made me way more
Horny.
For lack of better terms, I guess. I ain't gonna deny it. But I want to jump into this is our fourth artist spotlight episode. The previous ones included Jack the King Kirby, Mike Mignola, and Akira Toriyama. And like we've already said, this one will focus on the artwork of Alex Ross. And much like the previous ones, I'm going to go ahead and start out with a very high-level overview of his timeline, some of his key milestones. So this is kind of essentially us doing the homework for you guys, kind of giving you a background of who the artist is. At which point we'll start kind of breaking down his art style and some of our favorite things about him. So I'll go ahead and do this quick kind of overview. If you guys want to chime in at the end with any interesting tidbits or things I might have missed, and I just want to make a disclaimer. This is not super detailed or includes all of the big and small things. It's kind of just enough to go ahead and give our casual listeners and anyone who's never heard of Alex Ross a pretty good background.
The year was 1970.
Now you got to pull the
1945, Ellis Island.
no, you got to pull that. You got to pull the Kingpin. When he was a boy. Which, by the way, all right, check it out. So Alex Ross' full name is Nelson. Alexander Ross, and
Just like Prince.
What?
Nelson Prince Rogers.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, immediately when I read Nelson Alexander Ross, I imagine Kingpin grabbing Matt Murdock.
Nelson Alexander Ross.
Oh, boy.
Nelson Alexander Ross. Matt would be like, who? So Nelson Alexander Ross was born January 1970 in Portland, Oregon. His father was a United Church of Christ minister. Fun fact, he actually based the model of Norman McKay, the protagonist of his very classic DC comic series Kingdom Come, after his dad.
Yep.
His mother, was a homemaker and former freelance fashion illustrator for a time. Another fun fact, Ross was actually not that greatly influenced by her art. She had actually retired well before he could witness her create and draw things. His mother didn't really like doing that, and in part because just the way that the male-dominated industry was structured at the time. But he did go to the American Academy of Art in Chicago just like she did, and he actually graduated in just 3 years versus, I guess, the typical 4.
Had his mom's talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his mom's artwork is
I've seen
awesome.
it. They show it actually a little bit in Mythology, that book. So
fast forward to 1989. This is after he graduated the American Academy of Art in Chicago. He went on to work as a storyboard artist at an ad agency. He was creating layouts, animatics, commercial storyboards, and he only really saw it as a stepping stone into comics. So even at a very young age, he knew what he wanted to do, and he was already kind of mentally plotting out that course. It wasn't until 1990 that his first published comic work came out, and this was for a 5-part Terminator series that was released by Now Comics. It was titled Terminator: The Burning Earth. Like I said, 5-part story written by Ron Fortier. 1993, he completed his first painted superhero assignment, the cover of a Superman novel titled Superman, Doomsday, and Beyond. He was actually kind of apprehensive about taking this job because he did not want to draw Superman in the image at the time, with the mullet, the way he was looking in the 90s.
Right. 90s soups.
Oh, the mullet Superman.
But he found out that wasn't the restriction. He actually drew a very beautiful classic Superman on the cover with Doomsday. So he was able to tie, his love of the modern, the old school with the modern at the time. Fast forward once again to, that was 1993, the Superman novel. Fast forward to 1994. His first work with the Marvel miniseries came out. He worked with Kurt Busiek at the time.
Busiek,
thank you so much. Damn, that was so bad. Busiek. I've been saying that so long. I'm sorry. Thank you, C.
Busiek.
Marvel's miniseries came out, and big praise and whatnot for the new kid on the comic book scene. But it wasn't until 1996 when Kingdom Come, DC's that DC series of Mark Waid came out, and this was at a time when comics had turned dark and gritty, and Kingdom Come was kind of meant to bring us back to those eternal ideas that superheroes represent.
Absolutely.
I wanted to take a step back a year prior. My apologies. So 1994, the Marvel miniseries. 1995, he actually teams up with Kurt Busiek one more time and penciler Brent Anderson to create
Yes, you better mention my Astro City,
which was first published by Image Comics in 1995 and later by Wildstorm Comics. Ross painted the covers and did the character design and directed the overall feel.
Yep.
1997, DC Comics Vertigo, written by Steve Darnell. It was a story about it was a 90-page 6 story that took a hard look at the dark side of American history. That one's titled Uncle Sam. My apologies, I opted that out. So he comes out with Marvel's Kingdom Come, and then did kind of this Uncle Sam story arc as well. 2000, Alex Ross and Jim Krueger do Earth X. I think around that same time it was like Earth X, Paradise X, and whatever that last part of that trilogy is as well. 2001, he does the box art for M. Night Shyamalan's film Unbreakable.
Right.
2002, he designed the promotional poster for the Academy Awards, which was one of the first times that they ever reached out to a comic book artist to do something like this. So that was kind of cool to see. In 2005, he teamed back up with Jim Krueger and penciler Doug Brathwaite for the 12-issue Justice for DC Comics. This was a story arc focused on the villains of the Justice League teaming up to defeat the heroes. 2008, he embarked on a project focusing on the golden age of characters. It was called Project Superpowers, once again of Jim Krueger, for Dynamite Entertainment.
And we've never heard from him since then.
He also worked on the Avengers and Invaders story arc as well. It featured Marvel characters that were published by Dynamite. It was featured Marvel characters, but it was actually published by Dynamite Entertainment. And the story pitted World War II versions of Captain America, Namor, and other classic war characters amongst the modern Avengers groups. In 2009, Ross teamed up with Kurt Busiek for the first time since the Marvels project for something called Kirby Genesis. It was an 8-issue miniseries. The series featured a large group of Jack Kirby creator-owned characters, the rights to which were acquired by Dynamite, such as Silver Star and Captain Victory. And we're almost done here. 2012, he returned to interior painted art with Masks. It was a story in which the Shadow, the Spider, the Green Hornet, Zorro, and others joined forces to combat a mutual threat. And then from 2013 to current, some of the work that he did included a exclusive GameStop pre-order poster for the video game Watch Dogs, and he was doing all of the covers for Marvel's latest initiative, the all-new, all-different Marvel. He did a variety of covers for the main comics and the relaunch, such as The Amazing Spider-Man, Squadron Supreme, Avengers, etc. So that's kind of a high-level overview of some of the work he's done throughout the years, some of his achievements. And like I said, it's not all it doesn't encapsulate all of his work, but definitely some of the key ones that I'm sure that we've all grown accustomed to and love. Any additional tidbits or interesting things that you guys found out or want to add?
It's surprising he did like a few Anthrax album covers.
Man, I had it written. Look, you can see it written down. Where's it at? Anthrax.
Hey, that, and he did some really. I mean, I don't know, because he's done so much stuff with Dynamite. And he did some stuff, the Gotcha Man Battle of the Planets.
That's
stuff.
on my thing too, Gotcha Man.
Yeah, that's some stuff
Those
I
are my,
really
yeah.
like. Yeah,
those are my favorites. Is the some of the Anthrax stuff is pretty cool. Sucks that it was during their terrible years, but
it's been a long, terrible run.
That's true.
For Anthrax.
Poor Anthrax.
Hey, real quick, I want to chime in with something. Cesar knows him, John Beatty, right?
Yeah.
He started listening to the show.
Yeah.
And John has a vast knowledge of music, and he loves a lot of things that we do. He's been listening to the show pretty heavily. He's like, yo, I love the show. I will admit I have no idea what you guys are talking about when you talk about comic books, but man, I love when Cesar and Ed get into their old man bag and they talk about these old ass groups and these old references and shows.
Remember when Anthrax was good?
He's like, I love when they bring up shit that you and maybe Ashley have no idea about. He's like, you guys get quiet and Cesar and Ed get into their old man talk. And he's like, yo, I love that shit.
I was listening to State of Euphoria this morning on the way to drill. I was like, show, come on.
So I want to shout out John Beatty, who might be listening. Ashley, did you find any interesting tidbits or things you want to add before we start getting to the meat of things?
I mean, I found some really cool stuff, but I think as far as his body of work, you covered all of it.
I do want to add two or three things real quick. Ross won apparently there was an award for favorite painter that was done by the Comic Buyer's Guide, and they actually had to retire that because Ross won it 7 years in a row, and they were just like, all right, yo, it's clear who everyone's favorite comic
it's like
book.
Schwarzenegger and Mr. Universe, you know.
And it was a fan award, so I mean, for 7 years straight, fans were.
And there's not that many.
Yeah, I was thinking
painters.
about that.
We're giving it to Arnold, right, guys? Right?
Also, in 2002, he actually designed a series of costumes for the Spider-Man film, and even one a costume design for Green Goblin.
Oh, he did. That's right.
Yeah, that they didn't use, but it was actually an unlockable costume / Easter egg in the video game adaptation. And if you could unlock it and you could see it, and actually his Spider-Man redesign looks a lot like Superior Spider-Man. It's got the V kind of shape, the spider, very small, black costume, big.
What about my costume, Spider?
He gave this motherfucker a hood and a sword. I was like, oh damn, yo, that's gangster. What was the other thing? Okay, and he's referred to as the Norman Rockwell of comics. And you could definitely see, the similarities, the photorealism and the lighting kind of. And even Alex Ross admits, he's, I can see that. He's definitely a big influence. But it's interesting to see the influences that he says, no, these guys right here.
Bernie Wrightson among them.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it up before you do. That's my boy. The fact that he name dropped Bernie Wrightson as one of his influences, I was like, I don't see it, but awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. But now when he says like Neil Adams,
Yes.
yeah,
Neil
of
Adams.
course everybody, okay, photorealism, sure, Neil Adams.
Did you see the that Halloween piece he did this year with the Universal monsters?
Yes.
And it's
Ooh.
the Neil Adams
yeah.
cover. He even says it. He's like,
Yeah.
"This is a Neil Adams cover. This
Yeah.
is Frankenstein instead of Superman." This, he basically used his placement to.
He's
make
on
this up.
Instagram.
He's
like
on Instagram.
he does these little videos.
Alex
up where
Ross
he-
Yeah.
is pretty good on social media. He's got a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. He posts on like Facebook and all
Nice
that.
2-minute videos. I love
He's
it.
like kind of like, all right, so Alex Ross is kind of like Bob Ross because his voice is also very so basically I came up with this painting idea. I was just
Very
like, blah, blah,
chill.
blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like,
And he doesn't skip a beat while he's doing like this masterful,
right, like he's very good at communicating. Like he knows how to spell his own name. He's very.
All right, see, we get it. All right, God.
Pronounce
I'm sorry,
Kurt Busiek's
man. I'm
name
sorry.
right.
Yeah, that's funny. That was really funny. And to add to the list of his influences, because I was surprised about the Neil Adams too. I can see where he's coming from, but he also lists George Perez,
George Perez,
as a
for
huge
sure.
influence.
Yes.
And
He's been eating
Salvador
rice and beans. And like,
and Salvador Dali as a guiding influence. And he actually did. He was commissioned. Alex Ross was commissioned by the Apple Corps Ltd. To be the first artist in over 30 years to paint the Fab Four, the Beatles. They released like some sort of box set album, special collector's edition, and Ross did one of each of the members of the Beatles. And they're gorgeous, and I could definitely see the Salvador Dali influence there.
they're all amazing. Ringo's is slightly less amazing.
Well, come on. Octopus's Garden. That's a great song.
It's a very good song. Very good, yes.
So let's go ahead and so we've gotten kind of the factual things out of the way in the timeline. I want to kind of dig into why we appreciate him as a group. What was everyone's first kind of conscious exposure to Alex Ross and his artwork? Ashley, you want to lead us off with this one?
Yeah, so I'd seen it before, just being at the comic shops and art college and stuff, but I didn't really connect with it until I saw that Tango with Evil that they started putting on everything, like the Joker, Harley Quinn, that image.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That started showing
Yes.
up on like
Okay.
everything at the shop, like phone cases,
Yeah, yeah.
purses. It was on everything, and that's when I started looking at his stuff and
Who's this
seeing
asshole?
seeing how amazing his watercolor was. And then I was digging through the back issue bins, and I found that Uncle Sam comic.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I got the Masks one, and that's kind of how I got into it. I was a little late to the game, but yeah.
Okay. No, that's good. I didn't because that sounds like a couple of years ago. Like
Yeah, it wasn't that. I mean, I worked at the shop maybe 5 years ago when
Okay.
I started at the shop, and that's when I really got into it.
no, that's interesting. Okay, cool. See, what about you, man?
No shit, there I was.
Yo, bring it. Come on.
Story.
Everyone
Story
quiet,
time.
quiet.
1995. The year was 1955. I was a little fresh-faced boy in Waldorf, Maryland, reading Wizard magazine. And in Wizard magazine, I saw the pages featuring a certain comic about to come out where Superman had angel wings on the side of his hair, and he was a little older. And I said, comics have never looked like this before. What is this? This is a painting, you know? And wait, the inside of the comic is like this as well, not just the cover? So right away, when I first saw Kingdom Come, I couldn't get my hands on the first issue, but I think it was issue number 4 I was able to read. And it changed my life. Like I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. The level of detail, how real he makes everybody look. And also, like, real in the sense that big, huge, buff dudes that can, like, throw a car at someone aren't, like, shredded. They're not cut. They're not, like, dehydrated, so every muscle is seen and every vein is seen. Like usually, classic strong guys, like dudes that actually can bench like 500 and deadlift 1,000, aren't. They got kind of a little bit of a gut, you know.
It's like the Mountain, Game of Thrones.
There you go, like something to that equivalent. But he made it across the board that way. Like even Wonder Woman didn't look like this waifish girl,
and he's using references too,
right? Like
so.
she was striking and very beautiful, and also had sort of like a soft jaw while still maintaining that sort of like strength. Like like if she punched you, your head is gone. You know, like it was astounding. I'd never seen anything like it, and after that. Around that same time, it was like Marvel's was kind of starting to come on my radar as well. You know, seeing his depiction of Spider-Man was,
I love it.
It blew me away. Like I'm like, oh my god, like I could see the clothes. Like I can almost feel the thread when he paints it. You know, like it's not. You know, when we all read comics, we know like if Todd McFarlane's drawing Spider-Man, it's like, oh yeah, so you know, wrinkles don't exist in my drawings. They're all just basically just spray painted on their bodies. Same with Jim Lee. Even Jim Lee's guilty of it. You know, but like
I have comments about the difference between Ross and Jim Lee and all.
Not
that,
since Frank Quietly has anyone.
Frank Wally be drawing them like they just pulled it out of the dryer, like and it's been in the dryer for like a day or two. It's like real wrinkly.
Even their skin looks like that.
Yeah,
you know. But not since Frank Quietly has anyone really taken the time to like make sure you know that this is an actual cowl someone is putting on. Batman, his justification of why Batman looks the way he does is that if everybody saw a dude with the highest technology and like the best like armor and Kevlar or whatever, like it was freaking Bruce Wayne. But if he's a legit ninja, then he can do all these things with just a cloth outfit.
Yeah, don't correlate him with money.
Right. That's a testament to how like powerful Batman is. So, because we all know if Donald Trump was jumping around on a rooftop in a scuba outfit, you'd know it was him.
Oh,
you'd be like, oh, that's fucking Donald Trump up there, duh. Clearly a rich guy jumping around. It's totally me, guys. Sorry,
best superhero ever.
You caught me. I'm the best, most luxurious superhero.
If Donald Trump tried to save me from a mug, and I'd be like, I'm good. I'm good, bro.
I'd have a. Never, we're not going to go there.
That's like it's not
going to go there.
No,
but the idea being that I had never seen anybody draw, and not just like I think the word realism gets thrown around a lot.
No,
but
that's good.
This isn't realism. This for realism's sake. Like he was like, yo, what if this buff dude just put on a spandex outfit? What would it look like? What would an actual superhero in a spandex costume look like? And how do I make it look akin to a Greek god descending upon you?
Well said. Thank you, C. Ed, what about you, man? First exposure to Alex Ross.
My first exposure, my dad used to go to, there was a little bookstore on University called Jerry's Bookshop.
Jerry's Bookshop.
Yes. You mean the Watcher?
That dude is the Watcher. Yes.
Yeah, Jerry. And this is when it came out. So this is like younger, awesome, like you come in and Jerry's shredding on a guitar in the back.
Oh, damn.
With like a drum machine.
I did not get that
like,
one.
oh, hey. Yeah, oh, yeah. He was like just shirtless, like, oh, I'll be there in a minute. It's like
just trying to figure out this Deep Purple riff,
like,
guys.
Yeah, it's like, and you know Jerry, so he's like a really well-spoken guy.
Absolutely.
And at the time, he had like a small comic section, but he was mostly like older used books and things like that. But he had a small section, and he had a diamond account, so he would just put a few titles in, and this was like the 90s, so there was a lot of stuff that he didn't like, and it was like, oh, this is horrible. And then Kingdom Come came out, and he's like, hey, check this out. And he basically introduced me to it. It's like, dude, this stuff I don't like any of this crap, but this is good. It's like, oh, okay, let's check it out. And yeah, so he's basically got me onto, Kingdom Come, and that's my first, basically almost the beginning of his career. That's kind of when I noticed his work. So
cool. Mine's twofold, actually. The unconscious first exposure was Toonami used to do these would show you these quick little 2-minute, if that, interviews, and one of them was with Alex Ross. And I remember like they had footage of him at his house. He was drawing, and he was talking about why Superman was his favorite. And this is definitely in like early 2000s, maybe 2000.
So you were probably watching DBZ like, yo, get the old guy.
Who's this bald guy? George Costanza
Get
guy.
this bald guy out of here so I can keep watching
that the guy from
Goku charge
Seinfeld?
up for 5 hours.
but I remember even then, and I wasn't into comic. And see, you're right. I was straight. If it ain't Dragon Ball Z, it ain't none. And but I remember thinking like, damn, this looks so real. Like this looks nothing like Dad's comic books in his shelf. So that was the unconscious state. But my first exposure was probably digging through like the back issues at Suncoast Comics when I first got into comic books and coming across like his Marvel stuff. And I remember thinking like,
surprise,
this is not a comic book. This must be some sort of art book or a reference book, some Elseworlds thing. So that was definitely it. And I remember reading when I think Alex Ross, I think about this Wizard interview / excerpt that he did, and it was around the same time that Bucky Barnes was going to be the new Captain America and stuff like that, or they had brought him back in Brubaker's run, and they interviewed him about his thoughts about like, what do you think about Bucky coming back? And he was like, oh, that was one of the worst ideas ever. He was like, that's stupid. He's like, the only people that should stay dead is, Ben and Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy and including Bucky. And I just remember thinking like, damn, everyone else is like praising this up. And he's like, nah, that's stupid. Like, why y'all doing this?
Yeah.
So it's just, those were my first experiences. And moving on, because we've kind of talked about his style and things, but I want to get into a little more depth, especially because you three are artists. You guys dabble in making art and things. And I wanted to know what is it about his style that stands out? What is it about certain elements of his work that that has given him the just due and the praise that he has? Well, and Ed, you mentioned the photo references.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of his work that people attach to him.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And I've listened to some of his interviews, and he's very much a reference guy because like a lot of artists, we tend to draw from our brain, we tend to draw from our mind, and not really from references. We kind of symbolize things, or take shortcuts, or just draw our version of what we see. But he is so, and that's just his training, and especially being in like commercial art background where he was using references for storyboards and things like that too. And the fact that he uses gouache.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Is that how you say it? Damn, y'all don't want to know how it's said. Like, don't ask.
Gochi.
Trust me. Real quick, to mention that, I've actually rewatched that Toonami interview, and he talks about his process. Is he starts out with a small thumbnail, very tight, structured thumbnail. Then he does the photorealism. He takes a photo, and then he paints, from the photo because the lighting and the texture of the cloth.
He says that he, like most of his work, is the prep work and the thumbnails and the sketches and all that stuff. That's where the majority of his work comes in. So when he does get to the stage of painting, it's just, all right, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Been doing this for this long. And I didn't know that he worked on like standard size, like comic, and he's using like Bristol, just a thicker Bristol paper. It's not canvas, and just his technique that he uses. What's really cool with his stuff too, because with gouache, it's a little more, it's more opaque than watercolor, so you don't see that texture of the paper or texture of the canvas underneath it. And looking at his work, and that's one interesting thing he says, it's like, when people see my stuff, I don't want them to wonder how it's done. That's not the effect I want. It's like, I don't want people to say, oh, he used acrylic here, he did this here. I don't want people dissecting how I'm doing this. It's just, this is how I do it. So if you look at his stuff, it's, that's another reason. For me, it has like a lot of impact, is because you don't see those brushstrokes. You don't, unless you look really closely. You start seeing it a little bit, like once you see the close-ups and stuff, you can kind of start, and if you really analyze, but if you just glance at it, it's like, this is like a photo with some crazy lighting going on. But you don't see the texture, you don't see the and that's not edited out by computer, because he doesn't use any
digital.
He's all analog, baby.
All analog, and the highlights and stuff, he uses some airbrush, but it's like gouache and airbrush on Bristol, which is crazy.
That is nuts.
Yeah. And gouache is, not as unforgiving as watercolor, but it still has like a transparency to it. And I read this article from 2015. I know he's gotten better now, but 2015, he said he couldn't even answer an email. So, he's not on there like photoshopping stuff.
Yeah.
Damn. And we just praised like his YouTube and his like
he's
social
come a
media
long
presence.
way.
Oh, someone else is doing it. Right. Someone came over. It's like, all right.
And Ashley, what about from like your perspective? Because I know that you dabble in watercolor as well, right? In painting.
Yeah. So it's amazing. And I know he went to art school, so he learned all about like the golden age of illustration. I always said Andrew Loomis was one of the people that he looked at, and the thing they teach you to do thumbnails, they teach you to use reference, to be like totally prepared by the time you go to your finished piece. One of the funny things was he said he was really into Andrew Loomis because he could look at women with no clothes on, because that's what the guy's art was. It was like very reference heavy, and it was the female figure, and that's kind of how he really got into realism and things like that. But it really isn't. Just working with watercolor, just seeing his stuff and knowing, if I watercolor for the next 50 years, I'm not going to be able to do this.
Look, I was looking at his artwork from when he was 12, and I was like, damn, I ain't going to be able to do this ever.
And another cool thing is his, even though his mother wasn't, practicing professional illustrator, he just knew that his mom did it, and him going to school is like, this is what I'm supposed to do. She did it. Why can't I? You don't have those, a lot of people who go into the arts, you have those doubts. It's like, okay, I like doing this, but he's thinking career-wise, like, oh yeah, no problem. My mom did it. Why can't I? This is a legit job, So it's cool that he had that level of confidence just all through school, college, and then going into professional work.
Because Chip Kidd, this name that you guys see on this Marvelocity and this Mythology book, I guess he's like a close friend of his. He's a writer. He wrote most of the copy in these books, and I really like the way he describes Alex Ross's artwork. I think it's kind of exactly why maybe I'm so entranced by his work. He says something to the effects of, it wasn't just that we saw them differently. It was as if now we were allowed to really see them, and he's talking about the characters for the first time. The effect was like finally meeting someone you'd only ever heard about. And
that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Is that the anatomy is not, and something that is taught with comics. When you're drawing comics, it's like you're a little kid. You learn, okay, draw a circle, and the eyes are exactly this far apart, and the nose is this, whatever. And everyone, for the most part, follows those rules because they work, and they're good to use as, you got it in your pocket.
Their foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
This dude somehow sticks to all of that, and none of his characters look alike. Like, and then on top of that, he'll use celebrities as reference. So you'll be like, I never thought the dude who was the shaggy dog would be Captain Marvel. Like he's a great like Captain Marvel, and the fact that he used Gregory Peck, Atticus Finch himself, as reference for Batman,
he doesn't trace.
Right, does not trace. Like it's like I'm gonna
some
make
other artists.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna make Batman look like Gregory Peck.
Yeah,
and it's just astounding that like you could be like, wow, that's what he looks like. I never thought he looked like that.
Do you imagine doing like Marvels and Kingdom Come, like when internet was at its infancy? Like he probably has like a bunch of magazines with cutout pictures of all those people, because you can't just pull them up and print them out that easy.
Right.
Can we also give credit to his photography skills? Like that ain't no. I mean, I imagine the amount of hours he takes just drawing the thumbnails, or even just doing the painting side, but the amount of hours to set up a model.
Yeah, he sets the lighting. The
lighting.
Yeah.
Like I saw his thing, and I was like, man, he's a photography studio. He's got everything, and it's like, man, I wonder how much I don't think I've seen anything talk about how he trained himself to be a really good photographer, but that's got to play a role in it somehow. I really liked how you described, these characters, might have a gut. They kind of have this realistic body to them, and when I look at Alex Ross's artwork, one of the things that I really enjoy is that it looks like they're made of like real flesh and blood. Like they're not. They're like a weird combination of 2D, 3D, and maybe something else. But man, it's like, damn, if Captain America was real, this is probably what he would look like. This would be his structure. And in Mythology, he talks about the model for Superman was a coworker of his at the Leo Barnett ad agency. The dude's name was Frank Casey. And he said he was an ideal Superman model because he looked powerful, but he didn't look like a competition bodybuilder. He looked like just the right, perfect middle ground. And I think that just says something about Ross's, views on heroes, like trying to tie them into the real world, as real, crappy pun, but real mythological characters.
Not crappy at all. I was going to bring that up, is that you see these characters for the first time. They're based off of major figures in religion, in all kinds of mythology. And to have him bring these characters to life, in a sense where like you feel like you could shake their hand or that you've never seen them before. It's almost like religious iconography. Like for a long time, the Catholic Church, people couldn't read. So all of the stained glass window paintings and portraits are there. Yeah. They're stories, so that way people who can't read will be like, that's what that is. If that isn't what comic books are, I don't know what. Especially, I guess, Golden Age comics, So the idea that these characters are now coming out and they're there and you can almost feel the cloth that they're wearing is almost a cathartic religious experience for people who like comics. Especially you pick a character you like, and if Alex Ross has painted it, including horror characters, it's like this guy not only gets it, but he gets it on a primal level that a lot of people aren't aware he's hitting that nerve.
Yeah. And like I said, that goes back to the reference thing. He's so adamant about not straying, not using that imagination to kind of, exaggerate something that it's not necessary.
Right.
So it's like, because like you said, everything's tactile because, the people are wearing usually are in costume that aren't celebrity based, just for the poses and stuff. So the clothes are hanging, everything looks real. And the fact that he doesn't go too crazy with the airbrush, it doesn't have that, because we all have seen like that, the airbrush stuff from like everything almost looks like it's dipped in plastic.
Sure.
So it doesn't do that.
Olivia comes to mind.
Olivia, yeah.
I mean, she's great.
Yeah, a lot of the fantasy
really
illustrators,
great.
Boris.
But it's exactly.
Vallejo.
Vallejo. Yeah.
I want to chime in, and maybe one of you guys could speak to it a lot better, but his use of lighting seems to be like an element that I like both consciously and subconsciously really enjoy, because it's got to be something about the lighting, right? That to have this dramatic effect to a lot of his characters, maybe like the way the light shines, that kind of gives him like this bigger than life attitude. I mean, how do you guys feel about as far as art and lighting and how Alex Ross does it?
It's like he has like spotlight lighting.
Yeah, it's very harsh lighting.
Yeah, it works. I mean, that's one of the things. Like all of his group pictures that I've ever seen him do, they all look like they're just spotlights all lined up over them, and it makes it really dramatic.
Yeah, and even and he's technically really good, but he also has a really good sense of design and posing. So when you see Superman, it's a lot of times it's kind of you're looking up at him. So it's with that lighting, it's more impressive, because there's a lot of times in comics are guilty of it where people are almost too casual with the superheroes, where it's like, oh, hey, Superman, a little kid just like, and he should be intimidating. You should be kind of in awe of him. And a lot of comics, they kind of, play that off, where little kids are running up to Batman and Superman. And it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Yay. It's like, you should have a little more, it's like C was saying, it's a religious experience. There's a reverence to it.
Yeah.
Just like those big,
good word for it, reverence.
Those big like cathedrals and churches in the Dark Ages. It's like you walk in there, even if you're not religious, you walk in there, you feel something.
Right. There's a sanctity to his work, for sure.
Damn.
The idea behind the lighting is also like he doesn't use the same kind of lighting. He'll experiment with different kinds of lighting for different characters.
And stuff,
yeah. For Batman, he'll use like harsh lighting from one source, where what comes to mind is the gargoyles, with like the leading shot of the gargoyles, and then Batman's face is there, and you're not really supposed to be able to tell the difference between where the gargoyles' faces are and Batman's face, because they're lit the same way. Any shot with Superman is always done with like a backlight and a key light, and it's more or less like you get that. That's where the religious overtones come in, because a lot of religious pictures are paintings and portraits, and even photographs of statues are lit that way. And he knows that. Like, he's got an eye for it. It's freakish.
what do you guys as far? What's your favorite body of work by Alex Ross? And if you also want to comment as far as what makes his work stand out from some of his contemporaries, because when I think about other artists that might be influenced by Alex Ross, my list includes people like Gabriel Dell'Otto, Clayton Crane comes to mind, Marko Djurdjevic also as well, and even Greg Land too. I mean, Ashley, what's your favorite Alex Ross body of work, and why do you think he stands out amongst some of your favorite contemporaries?
So it's definitely Kingdom Come. I think it's just that big book and just such this consistency. I mean, you can't find a flaw in his art in that book, in all the pages of it. I like his work because he's kind of keeping that golden age of illustration where they always use the reference. When they couldn't do photography, they had the live models. They planned it out. They did sketches beforehand. He's kind of like keeping that tradition alive.
It's like a throwback, yeah.
Yeah, and bringing it into comics.
See, what about you?
It's two things. It's one picture, or one painting rather, of Batman with his shirt off, and it's iconic.
Yeah. Oh, it's got all the scars on him. Yeah,
when you see
that's
his
a great
back,
picture.
And he's like,
That is a great image.
Bruce basically has the costume put up, like he's basically saying like work is over for the
It's
night.
like flexing.
Yeah, and he's kind of turning around, like he's basically taking the utility belt off. But
No,
we,
ladies.
as a viewer, get to see for the first time like every bullet wound, every slash, every knife, the effect that literally the scars that he's carrying on his back of his city, and the crime, he wears the scars of his city on his back, and Alex Ross just paints him with this expression like, and fucking what?
Like it's another day at the office.
Exactly. But like that's Batman, right?
Yeah. Some aspirin won't fix.
Right? But I felt sad for him when I was a little kid when I saw it. Like I was like, he doesn't get a day off, like, and that's how he gets paid.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then his work on Dynamite's The Phantom, which I love all the pre-Golden Age characters a lot because I'm old.
If I can chime in real quick, when it comes to his Dynamite stuff, man,
It's awesome.
It's levels.
Don't you
of
say
amazing.
Dynamite? Don't you fucking say it?
Compared to Marvel.
Well, I mean, look, if we're saying that his DC characters like Superman, Wonder Woman have sort of that kind of awe effect, that reverence, I feel like with his Dynamite characters, it's like this is the true golden age of superheroes, and it kind of commands that respect. Like when I see his covers of like the Phantom or the Mask or Green Hornet, I'm like, damn, like
Shadow.
There's some sort of built-in sense of like classic like appreciation in those covers, and like, damn, that as much as I love Spider-Man and these other modern heroes that are still prevalent, it's like I look at his work on Dynamite and these classic characters, and like, damn, like that's the OG. Like those are the OGs,
Absolutely.
and you gotta respect it.
Absolutely.
That's the stuff that he probably, was a fan of when he was a kid. Because I know he talks about like Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, those older '30s comics as kind of like the influence pre-superhero stuff.
Sure.
And the name just escapes me. But
Flash Gordon he loves too.
Flash Gordon is up there. So these pulp, and then going back to him using like gouache, a lot of those sci-fi novels, those dime store pulp novels, those
Right.
artists were using gouache before acrylic and all the other mediums started taking over. So it's almost like a tribute even back to those illustrators as well.
And see, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were saying that the Dynamite stuff was your favorite. Anything else to add?
No, I mean, like the Phantom is another one of those characters. Like everyone touts Superman as being the first. I think the Phantom predates him or comes out the same year, and is the reason why you see the whites in superheroes' eyes, like when they put their mask on. Lee Falk, when he created the Phantom, he was trying to emulate Greek statues, and because of time, they no longer have the iris and the retina.
Huh.
It's gone. That's why they're white.
Interesting.
So he was like, these superheroes should be at that level. They should be at the elevated and venerated to the level of Greek god. So paint them white. So it's no surprise that Alex Ross sees that and is like, hey, we want to do a revamp of the Phantom. We need you to kind of redesign the character. And he's probably like kid in the candy store,
Oh, yeah.
like, oh, yeah, I got this all day. hold on, guys, buckle up. You know, like it's perfect.
Yeah. Ed, what about you, man?
This probably has to be Kingdom Come. Just aesthetically, all the character designs with like the younger generation, and it's funny because it's mid-90s book that's a commentary on 90s comics at the same time.
Right.
Because Magog, the guy, he's basically Cable with a goat helmet.
Sure.
You know, he's got the metal arm and he's got the pouches, the thing of pouches built.
The multitude of teenage heroes that are all like just meta anti-heroes.
Actually, if I can add something, you're not far off. I think he says Magog was inspired by Cable and Shatterstar.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you can see it.
And like I said, I love pretty much everything he comes out. It's like you know right away that's his stuff. You know, just the palette he uses. But I like we were talking about earlier, the Battle of the Planet stuff, the stuff that you can tell as a kid that he likes and he's getting to paint now. You know, and I mean, of course, that's everything with like DC, Marvel. I'm sure all that was enjoyable, but when you go deeper into like the Phantom, the Shadow,
Those are some deep cuts.
Like,
you're like, I want to see how he draws Dr. Nambu.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that stuff is his stuff.
Swan the June.
And it's been consistent for 30 years almost. You know, it's crazy. There's no drop off. I know he doesn't do too many. He's pretty much cover posters and things like that now, but he's earned that.
Right. Right, absolutely.
So I want to chime in real quick on this cover art stuff, because I think in today's space we see Alex Ross just kind of sticking to the cover art, especially at least with his Marvel stuff. I mean, 99% of this book in the Marvelocity is all just his cover work, but and I was talking to Drew about this. The difference between Alex Ross and say someone like a Jim Lee or a J. Scott Campbell or anyone else in that school is their covers. I feel like they don't give. They look great. I mean, no denying Jim Lee draws a damn good cover or J. Scott Campbell draws a good cover, but there's something different about an Alex Ross cover. It's like you get context, you get a mini story all in his covers alone, versus maybe some of the other artists I named. It's kind of more of like just a grandiose kind of like pose or
Yeah, I mean he goes into that like movie poster design, from the '80s, like this illustrated. Was it Drew
Struzan?
Drew Struzan. And you can even though it's a totally different technique, you can see that with like Mignola covers too, where it's like Hellboy and then a face here, a face here. It's all more based on movie design, because that's what's going to draw you in.
Those are both guys that you just mentioned, Mignola and of course Alex Ross. They're both dudes that know how to tap into that primal mythological sort of thing, that sort of weird, the other, if you will. So like. You look at his covers that he does, like J. Scott Campbell and Jim Lee and Tim Sale. Like all these guys are great artists, but are they doing what Alex Ross is good at, which is basically saying, I'm going to take these superheroes, and he only usually takes jobs that deal with golden age superheroes, usually, right? Because he knows that there's something there. There's something there that basically kickstarted this entire movement, and I want you to see what I see when I look at Superman. Because if you think about it, a lot of people commonly hold Superman as sort of a milquetoast Boy Scout kind of character. They don't really see him the way people like Grant Morrison or Alex Ross do, which is, no, like this dude is he's a messiah figure. He's the Buddha. He's all these things. Like all that stuff influences the character. Like you gotta see all of this that I'm seeing. And that's the difference, is that he's trying to infuse all these characters with like their godhood. Yeah. And he's, J. Scott Campbell got, and all these other guys are great, but I think they're more or less trying to portray a different message. Like when you hire somebody like that, you know why. Yeah, yeah. We got to get Russ.
No, that's fair.
We need a Ross cover, baby.
I mean, no surprise. My favorite body of work from him is the Marvel stuff, and
now you say Marvel. Like, is this some sort of comic book?
Marvels, of course.
It's
even named Marvels.
Yeah, talking about
the series is even called Marvels.
90.
Of course, I love it. It's my favorite.
That's why it was 1994 classic.
Somewhere, Stan Lee's getting a boner.
True believer.
But and
taught him everything he knew. Just like Kirby.
And like I said, when I was finding these comic books as a kid, and I was flipping through them, and I was like, wait, this isn't really a comic book like these other ones. It doesn't look like it's part of a continuity or a canon or anything like that, but reading it much later in life and maybe a better kind of just understanding, it felt, and even like his Kingdom Come stuff, it was like, damn, this kind of transcends a comic book because it's
You don't want to just dump it on a kid too.
No.
I feel like maybe the part of you wasn't ready for it. Like
I was not. I was not. My ward is a junkie now. But
like you looked into the Ark of the Covenant,
but I like that Alex Ross, and I don't know how much of his input is into the story. I imagine a good bit because he's worked with Mark Waid and Kurt Busiek respectively on both of these titles that we've mentioned. But I love the critique of the comic book culture, and even like something like Marvel's. The premise: you have this journalist photographer, Phil Sheldon, and through four issues, and I'm sure they were standard size, whatever, 22-page comic books. We get to travel over 35 years of Marvel comic history through the eyes of a damn photojournalist.
So it's like this racist motherfucker.
Oh yeah, with the exhibition. But it was crazy because I wasn't collecting comic books when Namor and Submariner first came out, but I got to experience that thanks to Alex Ross, and it felt like I was looking through a history book. It was like, damn,
this guy's got a widow's peak just like me.
That's my real dad. Namor.
We finally solved the mystery.
Late on those child
let's
support
take him to the
payments.
beach.
Yeah,
See what happens.
There's no mail underwater.
He's telling. You know what he would say if I tried to hit him up? He'd be like, "No, Aquaman's your dad. Send the bills over there." But it's even like with like we were talking about with Kingdom Come. Like it's a commentary on comic books at the time and how they had kind of lost their ways about the ideals of what a superhero is. And I don't want to kind of read this quote from Mythology about why particular DC superheroes had such a big impact on Alex Ross. I thought it was interesting, and it kind of informed maybe how why Marvel's I like it so much or Kingdom Come. But he says, as an adolescent, you need order in your world. And superheroes have that, a sense of ethics that would never change. They would never be less than perfect, fighting for their ideals. They deal succinctly with moral issues in a way that religion doesn't. Or rather, religion does, but in a much more complicated and often confusing manner. And I'm sure that has a lot to deal with the fact that, his father was a minister. But just that view of, like, comic books and these superheroes, making sure that they are responsible for upholding this higher standard of morality and ethics.
I mean, you said it, dude. Like, and you see that with a lot of kids that are artistic, that had like a religious upbringing that they may have walked away from, but they may have some fondness there. Like with him, where he's just like, I'm not a big religious guy, but there are some things that they get right, and what they get right, I see in fucking comics.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna just.
Yeah,
and to kind of go in, to one of your points about how he seems to really favor those golden age superheroes. He actually said something like, I've always thought there was a beautiful eloquence of having a connection to something that was designed in 50, 60, 75 years ago that is essentially undiluted. They don't need to be over-altered for the sake of upcoming generations.
Yep.
They don't have to be unified. And I thought that was pretty interesting because the article is actually like Alex Ross... comic legend Alex Ross pulls no punches, and he calls like the constant reinvention of all these characters just kind of horseshit. He's
right.
like, they don't need to be changed for new generations. Like they kind
rebooted.
of they kind of surpassed that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man.
What about Danny Ketch showing up at the end of Marvels?
And and another
that's so
yes,
on a bike.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing about Alex Ross is that I love that his appreciation for all types of timelines and characters. Because the great thing about Kingdom Come was like, it was cool to like flip through pages and you're like, oh shit, like, yo, did you see that?
The Fat Albert characters.
Yeah.
They're there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think it's just Alex Ross's sense of grounding himself in realism and these bringing these superheroes into our world or even us into their world is that's where he excels over other artists. Like he's got that forethought and he puts that extra initiative to make a statement about these superheroes and why we hold them in high regard without real effortlessly. He's not a writer. He's not using his words. It's like
is he though? Sometimes the image is the message.
That's what I was going to get at.
Sometimes the image is the message. To quote Ridley Scott.
That's good, see. That was good.
Wow.
is there any?
Oh, put that pipe away.
Look, only because, and we can go on and on about Alex Ross. The man has been working since '94 and in the '90s up till now, and he's still doing current work. But I want to implore anyone listening that is interested in his work to check out some of the titles that we've mentioned: Kingdom Come, Marvels, Astro City, and so on. But just recently, him and Chip Kidd released Marvelocity, and it's his Marvel book to what
keep
Mythology.
saying Marvel, and I'm trying to figure out
to what his DC Mythology book was, which I recommend. Like, Mythology is so good. So if you're listening and you have an interest in Alex Ross, check it out. I promise you guys, you will not be unfulfilled. And that kind of wraps us up for this Artist Spotlight. We're going to take a quick break, do champion season and whatnot. But I do want to say, man, this is our 4th Artist Spotlight. And if you have someone in mind that maybe we should go ahead and spotlight for the next series, let us know. Shoot us an email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. I think some of the names...
Rob Liefeld.
Oh, dude, I want
don't
to.
give Ryan no damn ideas.
Ooh, I almost want to do it to
I
troll
totally
everyone.
want to do it.
Yeah.
I totally want to do it. I'm down for Rob.
I think some of the ideas that we've names that we've tossed around.
Pouchorama.
As far I love his pouch creation. I love that he's embracing
No
the troll.
ankles, no wrists.
I think some of the names
There's
that
no feet, just little lines and then a rubble. Some rubble behind some smoke.
some of the names that we've thrown around for artist spotlights, I think I definitely would like to do a Todd McFarlane episode, only because from his business mind, he was well ahead of his time. I think we've talked about Todd McFarlane. I think Frank Miller has been brought up. As well as I think C's brought up Bernie Wrightson as well.
Hell yeah, Bernie Wrightson.
Oh, yeah.
Ashley, what about you? If we had to do, who would you want us to?
I'd say
spotlight?
Bernie Wrightson be number 1.
Hell yeah.
Bernie.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can make Bernie Wrightson the next one. But if our listeners chime in with a
Take
good
it back
one,
to the 70s, baby.
All right.
that'd be a good way. Okay, yeah. If our listeners chime in with something really dope, I think we'll go to take that into consideration. But it looks like Bernie Wrightson wins the vote for next one. So,
So fuck y'all your emails. And, we decided
for now, no. For
decided
Don't bother.
For now.
decided for you.
We know.
Whoa, wait, what?
We know what's good for you.
Take us to break right
We
now.
know what's best.
We're going to play music and we'll be back, folks.
Obey.
Ladies and gents, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed that music break. We are joined by a special guest. While we were recording this whole time, a friend from First Coast News, her name is Destiny Johnson, was taking pics, shooting videos, and she was looking extra like striking the pose while she was walking around. I don't think I didn't notice.
Yeah. I do this too.
Ashley got her hair all did and nails all done.
Yeah.
Ed is wearing the finest of Versace hoodies.
Oh,
Do you remember that time? Real quick. Do you remember that time that Ed showed up here with what was he in?
He had like Nautica shirt.
polo shirt?
I don't remember.
No, I remember you came in with like the fanciest Nautica polo or some shit. And me and C were like, damn.
Like,
I don't remember that.
It was all white too. We were like, damn, you just.
Oh, it was, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's not. It's definitely not Versace.
But no,
Versace.
wow, Cesar with Amigo reference. I would never thought I'd hear that. Yo,
Don't you be telling
let me
nobody I
take it
listen
in.
to trap music.
Let me take it in. Destiny, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself and what you got? What do you do at First Coast News?
So I'm a digital reporter at First Coast News, which means I do all things on the internet. I write stories on the internet. I post YouTube videos, and that's kind of where I found you guys. Because I do what I call nerd news. I know that you're not a huge fan of that word, but
Are you not really?
No, she was. Pause. No, she was asking me about like, the
You
nerd culture
are an
in Jax.
investigative
He
journalist.
was asking me about the nerd culture
Hard-hitting.
in Jax earlier, and I was like, all right, well,
First of
I
all.
feel like the word nerd culture is kind of
First off, fuck anyone that gets offended by nerd now, because that shit is a badge
you're
of honor.
right. I was like, I usually just use fanboy, fangirl culture,
That is
whatever.
a badge of honor.
You're right. It is. You're right. I'm sorry for even like downplaying it.
dare you.
Destiny, yo, you need to stop snitching on me. If you're gonna be a guest on this show, I'm fucking with you.
man.
Yeah, fanboy, fangirl, and all my non-binary friends. You can be fans too. So I do digital stuff at First Coast News, and on my downtime, I get to do comic stuff for them. So that's kind of how I found you guys. I partner with Coliseum of Comics every week. They're
Shout
really
out to
nice.
John and Amber.
Shout out to John and Amber. They pick out comics for me every week. They're really patient with me, really gentle. And
Amber,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And so they recommend comics to me, and I saw your guys' flyer in the window, and I knew I had to talk to you guys because
That's nice.
you guys
Thanks.
are out here doing good work.
Hopefully, we didn't disappoint.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm telling you straight, like these guys carry me, so hopefully I didn't disappoint too much.
He's not lying.
No.
all right. You guys are supposed to be like, bother you.
Oh, he's the crowd. Don't listen to this guy.
What a mensch.
I like how Ashley just kept quiet the whole time. Ashley's kept quiet when I brought that up. She was like, "Bring back Adam." Where's Adam? Destiny. So have you heard an episode or two prior to our show? Or
Yeah.
prior to today? Okay.
Yes, I did. I listened to a couple of them just to check out and see if you guys it was actually something I wanted
Before
to
canceling. Should I
Yeah.
cancel? Maybe listen.
Before I was like, hey, on
like,
come on my show, I want to make sure you guys weren't like
I gotta wash my hair.
She was like,
jokes.
"Hey, look." She was like, "Damn, Bonner is on all these episodes. All right, I guess I just gotta go." No, so you're familiar with what we're about to get into. Our last segment of the show, Champion Season, right?
Yes.
So, and you'll stay with us and join.
Sure, absolutely.
All
Thank you. I
right, great.
appreciate it.
So let's go ahead and jump into it. This is our Champion Season. Champion Season, for you first time tuning in, is the last segment of the show. It is our chance to go around the table and share a few things within pop culture that has really resonated with us this week. So it could be a comic book, a movie, a TV series, a book, an event, anything that we feel, hey, this is super dope and you should check it out. Ashley, how about you go ahead and kick us off and we'll go just around the table.
So, okay, I've got Strangers in Paradise by Terry Moore. I did not realize how old this was. This is 15 years old. So I go to the Beaches Coliseum, and Dave always has stuff for me to read. He's like, I think you really like this book.
You ready for an investment?
Yeah. So I went ahead, I got the first one, and he's like, yeah, there's 5 more after this. So this is the first, I guess it's a little omnibus. It has 13 issues in it. I finally got into it, and I really like it. It's very, it's like dialogue heavy and just super, the pages are cluttered and I love it. It's like just all dialogue.
It's all black and white. Cool.
Black and white, tons of drawing. The first thing I thought of was have you guys read the Will Eisner, Dropsy Avenue sort of?
Oh,
That's what it reminded me of. And I haven't read anything like that in, since college. So I really, really like this book. So I'm done with the first one. I'll let you know when I finish the rest of them. It's going to be a little while, but I'm invested. I'm going to go ahead and finish them. He did. He got me. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, anything else you want to pass it?
No, that's it for this week.
All right. See, what about you, man? What are you going to champion?
It's going to be short and sweet. It is Frankenstein Alive. Just came out. I had pre-ordered it. Speaking of Bernie Wrightson, is the last thing he worked on. He actually didn't finish it. The last issue was drawn by Kelly Jones, handpicked by Wrightson.
That's the good choice.
Yeah, he said like, and Steve Niles does the intro, and he talks about like he wasn't just a guy I worked with, like he was my friend. Him and his wife would come over, and it was just actually really moving to see that. For like you've clearly you guys have read the stuff that he put out with IDW, like the Ghoul and some of that stuff. And when someone else inks over Wrightson, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I don't think they do a good job because he's so detailed, and every line he does is intentional.
Yeah.
So this book was good. I highly recommend it, and I got choked up by the last issue.
The sequel to the original Frankenstein.
Correct.
Story. Okay.
Correct. Which I had just got done reading because I read it every October. It's my favorite book. So, yeah, highly recommend.
Word. Okay. Destiny, your turn. What are you going to champion today? And you can champion a few things. It doesn't just got to be one.
Okay, well, I have a comic for you then. The Exorcisters. Have you guys? It came out, but I don't know, 2 weeks ago maybe. I don't know. It's very cute. It gives me some good season 1 Buffy vibes. I want to put on like a plastic choker and just like live my best 90s life. So it was really good. It had a good plot twist. The art was very vibrant. I would call it. It was very cartoonish, but it was really fun and really like when I was done reading it, I felt happy. I wasn't like contemplating my life or like thinking about something real dark and deep. I was just it made me happy. So there's that. And the last thing, second thing, this might be a little cheesy, but I'm gonna champion you guys.
Whoa! First time ever.
Whoa.
Is that a first?
I've championed us a few times.
It doesn't count. They don't count. You're the host.
Because I just want to thank you guys so much for
We're
having
recording,
me
right?
for one, and for two. I think you guys are doing something really great here, and it's not just because I'm here, but because you guys, it really is like listening to a bunch of friends that you're sitting down and having a conversation with, and I think that that's really important here to have in Jacksonville, not just for the fangirl, fanboy, non-binary fan culture here, but because I think that this is something it's growing, and it's really important just to have voices, differing voices, older voices, younger voices, female voices here talking about these things. And I think Jacksonville's a great place to do it. And you guys are doing a great job. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I make that my? Do you mind if I make that my ringtone? Like that whole 2 minute. Yeah. I'm like, don't pick up the phone yet. It's your mom though. Looks like
she needs to listen to it. She's always telling me.
Thank you so much, Destiny.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Do you have anything else, champion? You want to pass it?
No, that's it.
All right, Ed. What about you?
I'm gonna do one. Castlevania season 2.
Hell yeah!
On Netflix, it is incredible. A lot of people had, not a lot, but there was some criticism about the first season, which is almost just like a season 0 because it's only
it was like a fart
episodes.
and then it was done.
Yeah, it should have been just a movie. It should have just been one movie instead of a season. But season 2 is great. A lot of nods to the video game. A lot of.
I gotta ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you have a PS4?
No.
Fuck. They just released Symphony of the Night to download for and Rondo of Blood for like $20.
Like HD remastered.
No, it's not remastered. It's still the same game, but it looks better on a thing that's able to play Blu-ray.
Yeah, they do remaster stuff where it doesn't change the gameplay. It just looks
correct. But they haven't had Symphony of the Night available since the PSP for like. God, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
No, did you see the jokes? Symphony of the Night? Someone put a post saying that season 2 is season 1 upside down.
That is awesome.
No, but it's really good. It really... You see Dracula's kind of rage in that first season, and you really get more of that backstory, and it really almost humanizes him and makes him such a villain with a lot more depth than a traditional video game villain, or just the guy that it's the end of the game you have to fight a boss. Yeah. So it's a really good story, and they the way it ends, it looks like if it's Netflix doesn't cancel it, it looks like it'll be a season 3 because it splinters off to where there's an ending, but there's you can continue the storyline with it. So it's excellent. There are only 10 episodes. Under 30 minutes, so like I said, respects your time, like Ashley would say. And they're really quick, and the pacing of the shows, I mean, it's just like, oh wow, the episode's done. All right, next one. So it's easy to binge watch it.
Okay, word.
Well, that's about all we have for today.
Yeah, that is the most tired.
Thank you for tuning in.
I haven't done it in a long time.
Destiny, make sure you get my good side. Hold that.
Oh.
No, kidding.
Yo, you just broke the camera, B.
I don't know how would you feel if you watched yourself break a camera? What would you do?
I thought you were going to say, how would you feel if your friend berated you on your own podcast every Sunday?
First thing I want to champion is a documentary on HBO. It's called King in the Wilderness, and it takes a look at Martin Luther King's last few years of his life.
You were telling me about that.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's directed by Peter Cunhart, and
Easy.
Oh, but it looks at, like I said, the last couple years of his life. So from his participation in the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to his assassination in 1968. So this is definitely after like kind of some of the major milestones and hurdles. And it's man, you brought up the Batman Alex Ross image with him, kind of showing his scars to the camera, and I think that's a good way to describe this documentary, man. it definitely paints a very realistic picture of what was going on in his mind, the stress, the anxiety, just some of the fear that he was that he couldn't really express to anyone else. So they interview a lot of his closest friends and advisors and things, and man, it was a really good insight into a lot of the things that were going on for that time, and some of the things that unfortunately have carried over even today. So I definitely recommend anyone to go ahead and with HBO to check it out. King in the Wilderness.
I have a question.
Yeah, hit it.
Was there a scene where Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were talking, and he was like, Charles, they'll never accept us. And he was like, Magnus, please, keep an open mind. They hate because they don't understand.
You know, man, it's no, but that would have been pretty damn epic. I think it's
It probably happened in real life.
Shit, yeah.
Not like that.
No. The other thing, so I'm going to champion
I'm an
a
idiot.
comic book as well. Cosmic Odyssey. I read it for the first time today. The Jim Starlin and Mike Mignola DC body of work.
Oh.
Yeah, it's my first time reading it. I read it. I enjoyed the hell out of it, man. Like, I was just on the Mignola kick. I wanted
You haven't
something.
read that yet?
I have not.
You son of a bitch. I should have stole that from you.
I feel like someone did, and that's why it took me this long to read it. Like, now that you bring it
Ryan
up.
stole the list of names.
He did. No, yeah, Ryan, give me back my list. But no, it's a really good story. It finds the Justice League teaming up with the new gods, so Orion and the High Father, to actually help Darkseid fix a problem that he started. And of course, in great comic book and true Darkseid fashion, he's the one that was expecting this. So Mignola's art is really good, and all the scenes of Superman and Orion are so fantastic. And they're like the Green Lantern. Like, you guys have read it, right? Okay. Well, there's a scene in where Green Lantern's hubris leads to the destruction of a whole planet, and it's insane because he wants to commit. Like, he's thinking about committing suicide, and Martian Manhunter's like, "Yeah, go ahead, take the easy way out." But then he walks out and he's like, please don't do it, please don't do it, please don't do it. Okay, we're good. Very powerful stuff. Jim Starlin is a master at writing cosmic, operas. And Mignola's art is so good when you get to see Darkseid. So I recommend
He's
that.
so good that Marvel retcons all his work and undoes the work he does.
Yeah, unfortunately. And the last thing I'll champion is a podcast interview with one of my all-time favorite MCs and rappers.
Stanley.
Man, you know what? He should be credited as a rapper. He's probably in my top 20 with some of them damn puns he'd be tossing out. But it's a podcast called What Now? And it's on NPR. The hosts are two of the most legendary rap disc jockeys, Bobbito and Stretch and Bobbito.
Oh, cool.
And they interview Rakim, and it was fantastic
the hell outta here.
because the God MC is giving his background and his story, and it's so crazy to think. Even today, we're still finding out more about Rakim because he was such a very
He's mysterious.
mysterious,
Dude was like
very stoic.
I ain't no joke.
Yeah. So I mean, he tells you about like the way he got into rap, his musical influences with
Both his
family.
parents were murdered in Crime Alley. And he decided to wage a one-man war on
he
crime.
Could be the Batman of hip hop. But what I found interesting was that he was ready to just be he was really good at sports, and he went to school thinking he was going to be like signed to the NFL, but his demo just worked out, and he said, "You know what? I'm just going to give this rap thing a shot," and left like his potential to be.
He's Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane was going to be in the majors.
Yeah. So fantastic interview. Rakim, NPR podcast. What Now? And those will be my champions. Thank you guys so much for listening. These Artist Spotlight episodes are among my favorite ones to do, and I hope you guys enjoy. I want to thank my crew here for the research and coming through with like some incredible point of views and topics. I want to give you guys a chance to shout out any of your personal pages, events going on. Is anyone doing anything coming up events wise?
I'm doing that GAM market thing.
Yeah, the GAM Nerd Market. That's right. I think that's December 9th on a Sunday. I'll get more information from Ryan. See?
I would also like to shout out the Straight Chillin' podcast.
Ooh.
If you are into horror movies, we rate, review, and please subscribe. Straight Chillin', spelled exactly the way it sounds.
Yeah, and I want to shout out Robbie, by the way, the host of the Straight Chillin' crew. Nothing set in stone yet, but we're thinking about doing some sort of collabo episode, and hopefully in a live capacity. So stay tuned for that. Big shout outs to the Straight Chillin' crew.
Choose sides.
Ashley, do you got anything
I'm like
going
Wolverine.
on?
I'm
See
on
you guys.
Hold on.
That would be not crack this joke?
I'm like Wolverine. I'm on every team on the Marvel Universe.
Out of here.
Yeah, I don't get any sleep.
Bullshit.
Where's going to be on like?
Where's the couch, bub?
God,
Showing up at the Avengers Tower. Dude, why aren't you with the X-Men? He's taking a day off, Tony.
My week with Alpha Flight.
Yeah, right?
Remember those guys?
Hey, Alpha Flight.
There'd be nothing without me, literally.
damn! I really hope we're the Avengers in this case.
Sasquatch and
shit.
Puck. Just gonna drink and cry.
Oh man! Hey, real quick, Puck was one of my favorite characters in that Marvel War of the Gyms video game. Remember Evil Puck? Like he would like, do the flips through there.
It's like they're all trying to figure out, what does Heather Hudson do?
What the fuck does Puck do now that we bring him up?
Bounces around. He's like a bouncy guy.
Alpha Flight do?
They're different now. They're like a space.
All right, real quick, would you
Aurora
rather?
Barbier is underappreciated.
Who?
Aurora Barbier.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you rather?
Deep cut.
Would you rather be? Would you
Very
rather
nice.
be more offended if you were to join Alpha Flight or West Coast Avengers?
Ooh, West Coast Avengers
West-
for sure.
Yeah,
For
Tigra.
sure.
Tigra. Wait,
For sure.
What's going on?
Send me to Canada.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm just gonna quit being a superhero.
Wait, they have better health care. I'm going with Alpha Flight.
I don't know about that. I just want the poutine.
Poutine, yes, poutine.
Ashley, do you got anything going on events wise, or you want to give a shout out to your personal art pages?
No, I sit in the dark in my room and color until I have to come back.
Great.
Are you a Tears for Fear music video? No, I'm kidding.
There's like an Ashley symbol. Like the commissioner is like sitting here is like, by God, who do we have in watercolors? Nobody, sir. They're all dead.
Destiny, you want to shout out your YouTube channel one last time? How can people find your videos?
Yeah, it's First Coast News' YouTube. It's First Coast News' YouTube channel. Sorry about that. And it's just a playlist on there. I try and update it weekly, but I'm a busy gal.
Hey, we all are.
However, you can find my lukewarm takes, not hot takes, at my Twitter. It's hello_Destiny, and you can harass me and tell me what comics I should be reading and reviewing.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Destiny.
Thank you.
And I will go ahead and chime in and say that, like C was saying earlier, this November 17th, that's a Saturday at 7 p.m. at Coliseum of Comics, we will be doing another live episode. This time, this will be more of a book club / panel review style episode.
It'll be interactive.
Yes, and the theme will be Daredevil, Born Again, the classic, Frank Miller and
David Mazzucchelli.
Thank you so much. Story arc will be
get
going.
that
Yep, never will. And at the live event, I'm going to be pointing towards Cesar.
David, Italian the name.
Meet the ball. Hello.
Insert stereotypical Mario sound.
Subway meet the wasabi.
But no, if you missed out on our other live episode at Mosh, this is your chance to sit in, hear us talk about, and clamor over Born Again, all things Daredevil. We'll probably end up talking about
Did you hear
season
how
3.
professional Barter was just now? That he just managed to just push through the
Yes.
insults. Like he's just like, yeah, these are my people. Yeah, that's how they go.
I thank
armor.
you guys. I thank you guys for
Built him.
toughening and building this armor up.
I'm so sorry.
No, that turned out for the better.
You
Thank
wear
you.
celestial
Dooms-
armor of
Yo,
self-esteem.
damn it. That's good.
Was it like Doomsday where there was like a baby and they just kept killing him over
Yes.
and over again? He's throwing him against a rock.
That's what we've been doing to Barter this whole time.
Damn.
Like stones are gonna rock out.
Forged in steel of insults.
But so if you want to witness this live, folks,
it's gonna be great.
come
Good segue.
come to
Very
Coliseum of Comics on November 17th. Our live episode, Born Again. And you know what? I recommend you try to read Born Again prior, but even if you don't, I think that we'll still deliver
All are welcome.
good episode.
It's going to be fun.
Yep.
If you even have a remote interest in Daredevil, you should come because
Sure.
whether you've read the comic or not, you'll either get a chance to sound off or learn a thing or two. And it's a great place to go. Like,
True.
Support your local comic book shop, man.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or anything we've said about Alex Ross, maybe we missed something, or maybe something resonated with you, shoot us an email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com, or get in contact with us via any of our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just find us at The Shortbox. In addition, if this is your first time tuning in, please subscribe to the show, leave a review and a comment. Let us know how we're doing. It also helps others find the show. And we're on most podcast apps, so iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, CastBox. The list goes on. Just search The Shortbox. With that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up the show, and we'll catch you guys in a week or two, all right?
Yo, what happened to peace? Peace.